In this video, I show you an alternative and arguably superior method of sewing the seat seam in your trousers. The result is exactly the same though, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm showing you. But this video isn't a standalone, so you ought to have a firm understanding of making bespoke trousers before this video might become useful. Although you could watch this video and understand it thoroughly and then drop it into my trouser construction series in the description. I think also if you're making any kind of trouser, this might be useful for you if it's not how everybody else already does it. That being said, if you like the video, it would be very helpful to me. As in the original, I have chalked the seat seam so that we can directly follow it, as well as the notch, all onto only the leg with the fly. We can and should check that the centre backs of the waistbands will create the correct waist measurement for the wearer. We put the right sides of the two trousers together, lining up the notches and the seat seam inlay. We will also check the balance of the seams as well. Holding the notches together, walk the raw overlocked edges of the trouser together. Again, the inseams might not line up if we gave the trouser a dress. If we know the notches are identical, then it's fine. There will just be some ease before we line up the waistband. We are checking the balance to find the ease, though there should be no trouble distributing it in the seam. With the fly side up, holding the notches together, move to the machine where we will first of all stab the needle into the notch 1 centimeter from the seam. It's very important that we don't sew through the fly, zip, or the bearer, only the two trousers. I'm double checking the seams again. When we're ready, back tacking very accurately onto the notch. We don't put any ease in if there is any before the inseam. Hold the two pieces together with the raw edges lined up and follow the chalk line we made. Again, they don't need to line up, but mine somehow did. I'm not sure if I gave this pair dress or why they seemed to be misaligned earlier, but I'm checking the notches are perfect here. You might like to use a pin to keep the waistband seam together. After the inside leg, we can ensure the waistbands are level with each other before sewing the main body of the seat seam, distributing any ease and extra fabric that there happens to be. All the while, this time we make sure to keep the raw edges together. Last time I was aligning the mark stitching, this time though I want to keep the edges together and follow the line that we chalked. If they're misaligned slightly, it's because we overlocked some of the inlay. Probably. Approaching the waistband, ensure the seam allowance and inlay is properly open and flat to the trouser and that the waistbands are lined up. Like normal sewing to the top of the waistband, sinking the needle, turning the trouser around and going back down the seat seam. That's basically it for sewing the seam, but I'd like to go on a bit, checking that the stitching first, of course, is right. That the notches sit together nicely. It's important that the fly side will cover the zip and that it's back tacked securely onto the notch at that point. that the seam allowance at the waistband and fork are all completely correctly open. Press and stretch the stitching and inlay so that it can be pressed open, finally remeasuring the waistband so that we know it's the correct size. Since my cloth is striped, I also want to check the accuracy to which it's lined up on the centre back seam. It's not perfect, but given the darkness and size, I can get away with it. A seersucker with a lighter colour, then never I'd have to fix it. The left side also appears that it has a wider waistband by like, a 64th of an inch, which I realise is indicative that I was further away from the heavy canvas when sewing the waistband onto the trouser. Hence, going forward, it's something that I can check for more thoroughly.